I'm Dr. Bernous, though many people know me simply as Dr. B or Dr. B. Welcome to Astana, a space where psyche meets soul. Here we explore the deeper dimensions of human experience, the places where psychology, art, philosophy, and spirituality converge to help us understand not only ourselves, but also the collective stories we are part of. Today I'm honored to be joined by a very special guest, Dr. Aida Vazin. She, since 2006, has dedicated her life to providing mental health services while weaving together insights from psychology, cultural anthropology, and human behavior. Her unique approach integrates breathwork, regression hypnotherapy, and shamanic training, bringing a truly whole person perspective to emotional and spiritual wellness. Dr. Aida, welcome to Astana. It's a joy to have you with us.
Thanks, Dr. Bernous. So happy to be here. I'm so glad that you created this space for us to really start integrating very, very important topics like mindfulness, spirituality, philosophy, psychology to really help our community. So thank you for making this happen.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you here. So why don't we begin, Dr. Aida? Should I call you Dr. Aida?
Just Aida. Fine. Yeah.
Aida, it's great to have you here. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about how did you get into this nice combination of Eastern and Western approaches in your treatment?
Sure. Well, I mean, the Western approach started because of my my profession and my passion for mental health. I knew when I started college that I definitely wanted to go the path of psychology, and I couldn't get enough information in. And I had a lot of good mentors along the way that taught me to not get stuck on just psychology, but learn more collective and cultural aspects, which I'm also very, very intrigued by in general. So I also added sociology, cultural anthropology to help just understand our humanity as an individual, as a collective, as a society, as a person, as a culture, with just all these different angles that shape us. Mm-hmm. And in my personal life, I've always been very spiritually inclined. I've had an upbringing with multiple belief systems, predominantly a Muslim household. Mm-hmm. My mom became Baha'i. There was also a lot of mysticism in the household as well, like the Sufi and Rumi teachings. You know, the Iranians, that's one of our like pride and joy, Rumi and his poetry and his grace that he brought to us with his love, you know, like the love in his poetry that he talks about, as well as Native American mysticism, the teachings of Carlos Castaneda. And, you know, these books were in Farsi. My family was learning this, and I was just constantly being exposed to this information. So I was on this spiritual journey of like, well, what's true, what's right, and studying all of those beliefs, Native American mysticism, New Age, you know, the universe and everything like that, and mindfulness and Abrahamic religions, just kind of seeking truth. You know, what's that universal piece that's connecting it all together, right? And when I went to therapy myself, I just remembered spirituality really wasn't part of that empirical conversation. It wasn't part of that research-based conversation. It wasn't part of that therapeutic conversation. I was like, oh man, this is really missing. Yeah. And so when research hit a wall, when evidence-based practice hit a wall, when theoretical approaches hit a wall, which is like, okay, I can only take you so far with the tools that I have. And then got to medicate you. And then you have to have a higher level of care because all you're going to do is cycle back to step one. I was like, what is this missing piece? It's spirit. It's spirit. We're not bringing enough spirit into the psyche. And that's where I think you and I really connected, because that, I think, is your approach, right? And absolutely. Very much with the Jungian teachings, which I didn't delve too deeply into. I brought other aspects into my methods and my approach. But I think we're all landing on the same thing.
Absolutely. And I think it's the same thing that connects all theories together. Ken Wilber is one of the known current philosophers that he has written extensively about integrative approaches to even psychology and spirituality. Mm-hmm. We are living the same life but maybe each one of us are looking at it from own perspective. Talking about Jung, actually, he was the first Western psychiatrist that brought the Eastern teachings into the Western approaches. And that was the beginning of his separation from Freud, because before then he was Freud's right hand. And then he started saying that, you know what, this is great, but I cannot content with just sexuality being everything. And I think spirituality and other cravings and longings are also playing a big role. And that's why Freud didn't like it, and he didn't want to go the route that we are talking about right now. So in a sense, maybe the founder is not so happy with us, but then we had no choice but to explore and to bring the soul into the picture the way you've done. And I'm so excited to hear about your approaches, because these are fascinating. Would you mind telling us a little bit about the different approaches and techniques that you use in your work?
Oh gosh, yeah. I use, you mentioned like regression hypnotherapy. I was originally trained in past life regression hypnotherapy, and because that connects with my spiritual beliefs, or curiosity, I should say. I wouldn't say necessarily my spiritual beliefs, but my spiritual curiosity. And the trainer of that hypnotherapy training, he's Dr. Brian Weiss. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's an Ivy League psychiatrist, graduate psychiatrist in the East Coast, was doing highly empirical left brain therapy and treatment. And then he had this one case where it was unresolvable anxiety, and he hypnotized his patient and tapped into a past life to resolve it. And so that kind of brought him into a more, esoteric spiritual realm, which he was not connected to. And that fascinated me, right? Is to be like, okay, this is someone who's been highly evidence-based and then accidentally tapped into something deeper, which was incredibly profound and resolved an issue. It brought resolve. It didn't create this loop of just kind of going back into a certain neurosis or a certain anxiety or a certain fear approach. So I thought that was really valuable. I personally cannot confirm or deny the truth of reincarnation. I know it is part of many belief systems.
Yep.
I can't confirm or deny it. Haven't been there, done that to know if it's real. But I do know that it is possible. And I also do know that it could also be subconscious fantasy. And I found out that it doesn't really matter if you're tapping into a real past life or a subconscious fantasy. The resolve is giving yourself the opportunity to just go there, uninhibited. Don't stop the imagination. Don't stop the flow. Don't stop where you're going, because that's where you really get to see yourself. That's where the resolution happens, to tap into those deeper subconscious shadow sides of oneself, to bring absolute resolve, to bring it to the conscious mind, to just be done with it and move forward. That's one part.
I have a question while we are at it. I think it's very important regarding hypnotherapy. I started training myself and then realized and came across some cases that they actually, through hypnotherapy, they developed some false memories. And I've read cases that, for example, a young lady through hypnotherapy created this false memory that she was raped by her uncle. So that created such a trauma that, if you remember, Freud himself started hypnotherapy, but they stopped it for a couple of reasons. One said that our defense mechanisms are there for a reason. If we bypass them and bring some information up to the surface, the person might not be able to tolerate it and integrate it. So he was advising against hypnotherapy. Now, what I'm trying to get at is looking at it clinically. It's very important for, if a person is fully functional and has a successful, in a sense, healthy ego strength, can integrate even fantasies, which is fine. As you said, I love that approach. But what if someone does not have that capacity? And if we open the Pandora's box, if we may, how would we put it back in there? Because the person might lose their sanity.
This is a great point that you're bringing up. Well, one, I think the professional needs to have a strong clinical judgment and assessment. And then the individual themselves that's seeking these approaches should, that part I think is a little bit hard, because if someone is not aware of their own delusions or their split with reality, they might be seeking these approaches and these methods. And I can think of some cases and some people that I know that did go this route. How I would approach something like that, I'm personally cautious about who I regress. I am, because of the exact reasons that you mentioned, as well as I look at the themes that people get stuck in. Right, because if it's a story and a narrative.
Like ancestral, you mean?
Doesn't matter if it's ancestral. It's the theme of their narrative, their projection that they're living through, and that tells me where their subconscious programming is at.
Are you referring to repetition compulsion, in a sense that something happened in childhood and they're repeating the same story?
Yes. Getting stuck in some kind of wounding that hasn't been processed, but then seeing that happening in all areas of their life. Yes. So it's about seeing where they're stuck and then what their capacity is to go there. I mean, this method that I was trained in, so far it's been safe and effective to work with people because it does have a strong integrative approach. And again, I'm assuming that we are probably tapping into into subconscious fantasy. We are possibly tapping into subconscious fantasy. And what do you do with that? It's how you integrate it.
Exactly.
That's really important, which goes back to clinical judgment.
And that's a big part of even analytical approach, because fantasy plays a big role in how we are projecting our needs and desires into more acceptable form. So if you can access that inner fantasy and the person is okay experiencing it, I think that would be very helpful to, in a sense, help the person integrate different aspects of self.
Yes, and that's exactly what the point is, right? It's this fragmented self that needs to come and get integrated back into wholeness.
Exactly.
Right? And that it really is a personal journey. Like you, as the guide, as the therapist, as the professional that's guiding someone through that journey, you can have a path, you can have many methods, you can have many tools, but ultimately it comes down to the person. Like, is that their goal? And is that their capacity? Because there are people that will come for hypnotherapy and their goal is to just get deeper into their delusions of their stories and their narratives and their shadows. They don't want to come out of it. They just want a way to go and play it out over and over and over again. And that's just not the right candidate for this approach or certain other methods. And that's also someone that's pretty much giving the message that I'm not ready to like walk away from this. I want to keep replaying it. That's not the right fit for me as a therapist. I'm not the right fit for them as a therapist.
But wouldn't you help them? And what I hear is fantastic, because if we can tap into the nature of their repetition compulsion and help them realize that there is a reason behind this, you're trying to save not only the image of your parents if they made a mistake, but also to create yourself as a hero to overcome something they couldn't. So in a way, this is a very lofty goal, but hold on a second. Maybe it's really very difficult or impossible. Why would you put yourself into Mission Impossible? Why would you do that? Unless you're Tom Cruise, of course. But
that's a whole different story.
But honestly, don't you think that is also very helpful to use that to say, look, you're repeating something. The mission you're putting yourself up for really has no solution. So why would you even try it instead of accepting it and try to develop your own unique path instead of repeating something of the past?
You bring up an excellent point. You know what that lands on, in my professional opinion? Identity. And it comes back to identity. It's so hard, and that goes back to the whole concept of ego strength, right? So if someone is living that narrative, that subconscious wounding over and over again, they've created an identity around it, right? About being the hero that's going to do better than their parents because of that wounding. Or it's like the concept of the rebellion or the rebellious individual. It's I'm going to create an identity of being the equal and opposite thing of that thing that I don't like. Maybe overbearing parents, I'm going to be really free flowing and I'm just going to be a free spirit, right? But it's the identity is still connected to that that wounding or that trigger or that cycle that they've gotten stuck in.
But the person wants to be a hero, there needs to be a victim too. So they play the role of the victim as well,
Yes.
but they end up being stuck in that role and the hero is unable to save the victim.
Right.
Now, talking about this, I think then it's somehow comes to the work you do with the breath work. Does that help the person to somehow get unstuck if they find themselves in situations?
Yes. Great question. Yes. I believe in breath work absolutely and completely. It's my favorite medicine.
Can you tell us more about it, please?
Yes, I'm specifically trained in transformational breath. I did about overall 1 year training, 3 different workshops, very intense, as well as training with case studies and whatnot. So that was a good 1 year accumulative training there. And the breath work is kind of like holotropic breath. Holotropic breath is its own trademark, but it's basically a high intensity breath work. I know breath work has become very, very popular because of the yoga movement and pranayama breathing and in mental health treatment, like box breathing or 3-4-7 breathing, things like that. This is incredibly different than that. Okay, it's high intensity. Pranayama breathing, box breathing is not a high intensity breath. It's a relaxing calming breathing. This high intensity breathing is through transformational breath. They call it a connected breath, which means that there's no pause or interruption between the inhale and the exhale. So it's one continuous connected breath.
Wow.
And it's all done through the mouth. And this has a 2-part breath, which is a belly and a chest breath, where I think that's the difference between the transformational breath and holotropic breathing. But again, I'm not that well versed on holotropic. I just know it's very similar because of the high intensity, and holotropic has gotten more publicity out there. More people know about it. Just giving that little compare and contrast. But going back to what I'm trained in, which is transformational breath, which is connected breath, it's breathing that you do only through your mouth. You do not include nose breathing into it because it's going to change the ratio of the oxygen and carbon dioxide. That could create a hyperventilated state, which is actually going to create panic and dysregulation, right? But if you just keep with one modality, which is the mouth breathing, the ratio is going to stay the same. And then you first start with the belly breathing to help with that diaphragmatic breath, just breathing in and out from your mouth, no pausing. So there's a lot of technique involved in it to make sure that that you're not holding your breath on the in breath, you're not holding your breath on the out breath, which almost all of us do, right? Pranayama breathing or box breathing actually promotes that holding of the breath.
Exactly.
Right? This does not. And then once you're grounded in the belly breathing, and that's going to keep you from hyperventilating, and that's going to keep you from having more like a panic type of attack, then you can start doing the belly chest breathing, still connected, which means there's still no pause. You just do 2 inhalations for the belly chest, and then 1 inhalation for the exhale, but making sure there's still no pausing. Very technical in that sense.
It takes time to master that, right?
A little bit. Breath is so easy to master because it's something we do autonomically, and it's something we can also control. It's not hard to master at all. It just takes a little bit of effort and a little bit of concentration and a little bit of guidance. So with the breath work that I do, it's 45 minutes breath work followed by 15 minutes of meditation. The first 5 minutes is just getting into the technique. It's a 5-minute warm-up, getting into the technique, and then the breath breathes you.
And then while you're doing this, I'm assuming, are you guiding your...
Yes, It's
people to...
fully guided.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
So you start after doing this, are you trying to maybe get them to think about other stuff, what comes up in the body or
Yes.
mind?
Yes. So yes, going back to the concept of mind-body connection, this breath work will definitely tap into that. What happens in breath work is that your defenses will drop while you go into breath work. And it also creates altered states of consciousness. It's said that you can release DMT, which is the birthing and death hormone. Or it can also bring you either into a sympathetic or a parasympathetic state, depending on how you go into the breath work and what school of thought you are trained in and you learn about and you want to follow when it comes to breath work. But what it does is you're going to get high doses of oxygen in your system, which means however you've been constricting in a sympathetic state or in a trauma-induced state, it's going to make that a lot more aware where you're carrying it in your body. Most of us carry it in our chest, in our jaw, in our shoulders, in our hands. And then it's going to start kind of opening it up. And what that also does is it kind of opens you up to all of those parts that you've compartmentalized within yourself, all of those traumas that you've kind of put in your subconscious, swept under the rug, tried to hold in place with.
So they report this. So I'm sorry that I interrupted you.
No, please.
So because it's fascinating for me. So as you're doing this with your audience, with your group, you ask them to report back to you if they feel something.
Nope.
So how would they utilize it? How would they report back to you so you can guide them through this?
Well, I'm watching them so I can see if they're going through any kind of distress, and I'm also guiding them. What happens is you will definitely tap into trauma. It is
That's
the
given.
whole. Yeah, there's no question about it. The whole purpose is to help it surface, because we don't know what to do with the trauma. That's why we compartmentalize it. That's why we put it in the subconscious. It's a way to cope with it rather than resolve it.
Exactly.
Right? And so this is bringing resolution. It is inducing a resurfacing of the trauma with the actual tools to resolve it. And the tools include the actual breath itself, that is the medicine, the oxygen that's flowing through your body, giving you a vibrational, energetic state, changing the conditions of your body, and the stress hormones to the relaxation hormones, as well as the release work that you actually do, which is release through movement and release through sound, called toning.
So what I'm hearing is that the whole approach is unconscious and subconscious level.
Yes.
We are not bringing it to the conscious level.
It will surface to the conscious because people will have visions or like uncomfortable memories come up, and I will actually guide and induce that through the process. So first is the 5-minute warm-up is just to get into the breath. Then we're going to bring in the person, situation, or thing that keeps you up at night, or the trauma that you haven't been able to walk away from, and literally physically release it with your breath, with sound, and with movement.
And you're guiding them through
I'm
this.
guiding them. Yep.
So then there is a kind of formal guided.
Very much so.
Okay.
It's fully guided.
Oh, great. Because
Fully
I
guided.
thought, maybe for a second I was confused. I thought that you allow the person to immerse himself or herself deep into that trauma and not knowing what to do with it.
No, it's fully guided.
Oh,
So the immersion is through the breath, because your defenses are kind of melted away, and then I guide how to release it, when to release it, what to do with it. And then after that, then we go into the internalized negative self-concepts on, self-judgment, guilt, and shame, and resentment, and remorse, those spirals that we're all plagued with, or not feeling good enough, and releasing some of that. And then we reprogram it. We end it with self-love, self-acceptance, self-worth, ease, safety, comfort, authenticity. And it's just kind of chanting style to like reprogram into a different mindset. And that goes back to what I mentioned earlier, which is identity. So what we're really doing is we're releasing the trauma identity through breath, through sound, through movement, and then reprogramming to a new identity of authenticity, safety, worthiness, love, connection.
May I ask a tough question?
Go for it.
because I think you're the right person. I wouldn't ask anybody else but you about this, because at the same time, despite the fact that these are great, but there are some possible pitfalls there. Let's say there is a reason that we have a superego and we have ego and we have the drive, right? And superego, obviously, I'm speaking the language of psychodynamic, is our value system, our morality. Sometimes I agree with you. A lot of times we've been exposed to bad parenting, bad environment, trauma. We did not deserve it. But there are times, and I'm sure you've seen it, there are certain people that genuinely have done something wrong. And their own conscious knows about it. And the only thing that is stopping this person from doing it to other people is their own conscious, that the guilt feeling that they have inside. So the danger to me, Doc, is if we go in there and call it authenticity and let go of the guilt, then we might really opening the gates of hell, and the person, I might give myself permission to do things that before then I might have stopped myself from. Come on, don't do this, it's not fair. But is there a danger there? Are we paying attention to how much of that we call it authentic and remove the system that was put in place maybe for a reason?
Great question. I love it. Okay, a few answers to that. Please. First of all, a person who would be like a bad seed or genuinely just a bad person, most likely won't come to the healing arts, right? It's just someone that's not going to be drawn to something like breath work, because they don't want to get better, okay? But let's just say someone who's done something really bad feels the guilt, and the guilt is keeping them from doing it, okay? That, to me, says that they still haven't resolved it, that their way of addressing it is by self-shame and self-condemning, right? I don't believe that that is a resolution. That's someone who's probably going to dabble a lot with self-medicating, and because they haven't resolved that subconscious pattern, it's going to come out in other ways. Yeah. It's not going to go away. So guilt is a way to control it. It's not a way to resolve it. This is getting past trying to control it. This is walking away from it, moving away from that identity, because everybody deserves forgiveness. Absolutely. Even if we've done heinous crimes, we're not allowed to judge ourselves. There's only one true judge out there, and that's whoever created us or whatever created us. And so it's not our job or our responsibility to decide what a person's personal journey looks like, right? But it is our responsibility to not take it out on others, okay?
Exactly.
And so if guilt is a way that someone is trying not to take it out on others, truth be told, they still are. They still are. It's coming out in other ways, passive-aggressive ways, other transgressive ways. It's human nature. And you need to free yourself from that shadow. Why I love breath work is that it will not let you go past your readiness. That's the big difference between breath work and psychedelics, because breath work will give you the same altered states of mind that psychedelics will.
Wow.
The difference is because you are controlling with your breath, you are fully in control of the process.
Wow, yeah.
So you will not go past your readiness. You will not, because you're fully conscious and sober throughout the entire process.
Fantastic. I love what I'm hearing.
Yes. And so to the extent that that person is using guilt as a self-control mechanism, they will resolve it to the extent that is safe within their ego strength and safe within their capacity and development as a person. Okay? Now, if that same person was given ayahuasca or synthetic DMT or psilocybin or mescaline, that person doesn't have that control mechanism anymore. It will force you past that readiness point. And that's why I have mixed feelings with psychedelics and I have zero mixed feelings with breathwork. I trust it absolutely.
Wow, this is fantastic. I hope we can have some workshops here and, spread this amazing technique. It is so needed.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you explaining this. So basically what we are also talking about in a sense is these kinds of altered states is different. I can attest to this because I had really amazing experiences. I did a lot of years of meditation. And a couple of times I had such a deep sense of oneness with everything, such ecstatic understanding, and the time stopped. I mean, it was like I was facing God eye to eye, and I couldn't tell if 1/10 of a second passed or 10 minutes passed. I couldn't. But interestingly, back then I never tried any hallucinogens. Then later on, when I experimented with psilocybin, I noticed that, wow, hold on a second. What I got through my meditation was so much like this, with one big difference. I could get out of it any moment I wanted, but when I was on psilocybin, it took its time. So it was not like, okay, I'm going to be out of it and it's done. No. So I felt like the other one was superior to this one that was internal. And as you said, I was still there and I wasn't there. But I could call upon my ego at will to come in and change the tone. But while it was actual hallucinogens, there was not that much control over the process.
Yeah, exactly. What you just shared is pretty much what I was just mentioning with breathwork versus psychedelics, meditation versus psychedelics. It's the same concept. So you're more in control with these Eastern ancient practices. Meditation is an ancient practice. This type of breathwork is an ancient practice. And so they've been tested and tried and true through, generations and generations of lineage of people because they work.
Absolutely.
And you're in control, and they're safer than plant medicines or psychedelics or hallucinogens, which have also been around just as long.
Yeah, but then at the same time, which I 100% agree with you, we can't deny the power of psychedelics because so many people don't have the patience, maybe the discipline of sitting for hours and hours to practice meditation, while hallucinogens could be like catapulting them into a territory. If they are the right people, I think it has its own use for certain people too, right?
I agree. I agree. And I use the rule of the thirds, right? A third will benefit right away. A third might need some preparation work before they get into it. And a third might just lose their tracks or use it recreationally, right? It's just what it is. It's another medicine. Medicine is part of the human experience. It's been there from the beginning of our existence. Plant medicines, herbal medicines, now pharmaceutical medicines. It's part of our human experience. It's part of what it means to make it through life. Sometimes you need to medicate it. If something is so deep and so vast and so painful, like let's say, you have a broken leg, it's okay to medicate it while it's healing, right? And same with psychological and psychedelic medications. Sometimes you need it. Sometimes it's not that people are impatient, but sometimes you need it. Sometimes it's required. Sometimes the pain is so deep and the trauma is so complex, or the season of life is so heavy that it's okay to medicate it. But it's how it's done, right? So often the big problem when it comes to medication is the wrong diagnosis, the wrong medication, the wrong treatment, or the wrong utilization of it as trying to cope with it rather than using it as a self-medicating and coping rather than using it as part of a treatment approach. Just only using it as a form of treatment or escapism, right?
What I'm hearing is very interesting, and I have to say it. Your approach is so balanced, and I think a big part of it is your years of credentials and training in clinical work. And your approach is so well balanced that you're not losing the sight of anything. You're considering your client within the framework of the clinical as well as the spiritual. So this is why I think what you do is very helpful, because you're assessing your clientele and see who needs what, how deep they need to go. That's what I heard from you today as you're explaining, that you individualize your approach and you see what this person needs. How it's funny, it just came to my mind. It's just, free associating, like how deep is your love? It's just, how far they want to go.
Yes.
And then you have the tools and expertise to guide them where they want to go, how much? It's like those tours they, sell us when you go to a place. They say, okay, you want to just see it from outside, or you want to go inside the palace, or you want to go see inside all the rooms? It's up to you, which one you want. So is that true? That's your approach is also
Definitely.
clinical as well as spiritual, integrated together.
Very much so. Yeah, you nailed it, Doc. You nailed it. I went from feeling like, oh, I'm a therapist, I'm a clinician, I'm a doctor, to I'm just a guide. Tell me where you want to go, I'll take you there. I'll show you a path. And that's exactly it. And how deep do you want to go? How deep do you want to go in your psyche? How deep do you want to go in your transformation? How deep do you want to walk away from an old identity? How motivated and committed are you to going into a new identity, into a new experience? And I pull from everything that I possibly can. Because I'm really passionate about this. I'm passionate about our human experience. It's fascinating. Being alive is fascinating. All of these layers and intricacies about the human experience is just, it's a never-ending curiosity and fascination, right? What motivates us? What is truth? What happens before? What happened after? What happens after? What happened before? There's so many thoughts out there and beliefs and ways of approaching life. Which one's right?
Exactly.
And for what reason?
Exactly. What you're saying is that it brought me to one of the books that I just finished. I don't know if you're familiar with Karlov Knausgaard. Is a very famous Norwegian author. He has several books, and he's more into novels, but very deep, very nice. One of them I just read was Morning Star. It talks about the story that the Morning Star, the way he's presenting is exactly what you're saying. Says, okay, we first as human, we were so spiritual, and we had mythology, and gods and everything. Gradually, everything was alive, everything was breathing, and then we became so scientific, everything with the reason and proof. And now he's saying in this story that one day a morning star in Bible is presented both as a symbol of God and as a symbol of devil. And he says there is an interesting conflict there. But then the story is about one day one star starts showing up in the sky, and it impacts people's lives, and people start seeing things that they didn't used to, right along what you said. So I see even in modern writings, there is a big craving. It seems that we have abandoned our souls for such a long time, especially in Western countries. I guess we've stayed in touch because of our literature and poems and poetry and everything, right? But what you're saying is very relevant. I think it's what is really clicking these days, that we have missed maybe a big chunk of our existence, and we are not connecting to it.
Yes, I agree. And wasn't that Jung's whole concept and philosophy and approach? Like, isn't that what he picked up on that was missing?
Exactly.
Right?
It's the soul that is, a man in search of soul. Is basically what he was saying is that it's not just about the pleasure principle. It's not just about sexuality. It's also about belonging. It's longing for something bigger than myself. Yeah, I know some people might say this is all escapes, but fear of death. But having belief in something, life is bigger than me.
Yeah.
And we need to help each other. I think creates a better world, even if it ends right here. I think if people believe in this and helping one another, making a better world, it's not going to harm anyone. But looking the other way, this is it, there is no more existence, no meaning, might really get people greedy, get people so selfish. So even if we can, as you said, we can prove it either way, I think the byproducts of this type of mentality creates a better society.
Yes, yes. And I think you touched upon some really important points of just being part of a collective, being part of a community. And I think that goes back into maybe some cultural and sociological aspects of either an individual mindset versus a collectivistic mindset. And then also what we revere during the time where, maybe like, for example, Eastern cultures where the whole mindfulness approach came from, they revere meditation and poetry. And, that's where a lot of those not a lot of those, but some, the pantheism and mythology is still pretty active and alive, versus here in more of like a Western culture, it's very empirical and research based. You know, right now our belief system is science, right? And that creates a split and an objectification between our role in this world versus that interconnected piece that exists.
Consciousness.
The consciousness.
The collective consciousness.
Collective consciousness and collective interdependence. I was just recently made aware that, let's say like Native Americans, they would, some tribes, I wouldn't say all of them, would describe nouns in terms of verbs. For example, rather than the noun of a tree, it would be the action that the tree does, the oxygen giver, right?
Beautiful.
Right? Right? There's a deeper interconnectedness. It helps you realize
Serving the purpose.
Serving a purpose and symbiosis, that there's nothing individual in our existence, right? But then when we call it a tree, we can objectify it, and then we can feel a sense of separation from it, and it's what does it do for me rather than that interconnected relationship we have together. That's that different mindset, and that's a little bit more of that individualistic or empirical mindset, where we have to define things for what it is rather than the function or the purpose that it serves.
I totally agree with you, because you and I are coming from a background, from a cultural background that is very collectivistic.
Yes.
Living here, which is very individualistic. But I think there is a happy medium that if the individual, I always say, imagine that you have access, you're living in a high rise, that you have access from the ground floor to the penthouse. You can move at will. The ground floor is the collectivistic, the individualistic, the top floor is the collectivistic. So we should be able to move along this spectrum, because the beauty is, at the end of the day, everything we experience, every single moment is going to add to the collective consciousness. It's beautiful. Nothing is wasted. Every experience counts. And then at the same time, while the beauty of the collective is there, also the intricacy and the details of the individual existence is beautiful too.
Yes.
So the collective is expressing itself through you, through me. So these are also beautiful, because each one of us, despite the fact we're all the same essence, but we are also different. So the beauty is connecting the individual and the collective and move along this spectrum at will, whatever is needed of us. And I'm glad that you're promoting this. Speaking of that, I want to get this to the point that I love that if you share some of your individual experience regarding all these fascinating approaches that you've worked with. So tell us something about your personal experience. How did you get convinced to pursue these things? Was there any specific events or something that...
Oh, yeah. Well, because I've always been a spiritually inclined person, so I've always practiced prayer. So for me, a lot of things come down to prayer. I'll ask for something, and I've noticed that every belief system will say this: ask and it shall be answered, knock and the door will be open. Ask and you shall receive, knock and the door will be opened, seek and ye shall find, right? As long as you have a curious mind, which I have a very curious mind, you just ask for it, and the answers come. And I think that's what motivated me and has driven me so far, is because I've asked for answers. What works? Why isn't this working? Or I need help. This isn't working. What can I do now? And it's in a meditative and prayer format, and answers come. And I like to help bring that awareness for people too, that you're really living your own dominant thoughts. And that goes back to that subconscious patterning that we were talking about, right? The themes that people get stuck in. And when you're ready for a new experience, or if you realize like, hey, what I'm doing is not working, or I don't like where it's taking me, you start asking. And so, for example, with breathwork and the hypnotherapy, and I did this self-facilitated process called the presence process, which also really helped with how to embody mindfulness and be present and use this concept of the collective unconscious and this mirror method that I call it, to just kind of see all your relationships as aspects of the self, like we're all part of the whole collective, in an individual expression of it. Those were all answered from a prayer. It was after a breakup, and I was like pretty lovesick at that point, and I was just like really hurting, and I just didn't understand why I was there in life, and I didn't like the path that I was going, and my clinical tools weren't resolving it. They just weren't working. Like CBT was not doing it. Being lovesick, and heartbroken. And I'm like, okay, this isn't working. And so it was a prayer. I'm like, God, I need help because I don't like where this is taking me. I'm getting like depressed. I'm getting bitter. I'm getting a little jaded. I'm lost. I'm confused. And I mean, I call this guy an earth angel. Literally, this guy shows up in my life, introduced me to these 3 concepts, and disappears. I'm just like, okay, you can't make this stuff up. And I've had a lot of those kind of mystical and magical experiences in life because I'm open to it.
Exactly.
Right? And that's different than delusion, and that's different than magical thinking, and that's different than being psychotic. Exactly. That's asking and receiving. It's a very different approach. And we're all doing that. Mm-hmm. And that's the awareness I want to help bring to people. And that's something that I could only see within my own life in hindsight. Yeah. I couldn't see it while I was going through it, but I could only see it in hindsight. And that made me become more connected to asking in a prayerful way. Like, hey, I need help with this. I'm not able to figure this out. I need to get out of my mind. My mind is not solving this problem for me. I need something deeper. Mm-hmm. And what solved it was spirit. Yeah. Spirit through breath, spirit through hypnosis, spirit through tapping into that collective awareness. Yeah. That's my truth. Not everyone can subscribe to that, but that's my truth. And that's what I live by, and that's what I live with. And it serves me really well. And so every time I hit a wall and whatever tools and methods that I have, they're not working or they've hit their limit, I ask for an answer, and I'm open to it. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that the first thing that shows up that I accept, but I realize like, oh, okay, something's being answered for me right now. Let me explore. Let me be curious. So I guess to give a more concise answer to that very long-winded answer is I'm a very open-minded person. Mm. I will give things a chance, and I'll try my best to walk in without judgment, as unbiased as I possibly can. Mm-hmm. Not expecting it to bring me results, but just being open to like, what is this going to do?
Exactly. What's the benefit of going through this conscious? We need to consciously experience our lives. And each moment gives us something, for sure, right? And I'm sure, and I trust me, I know what you're talking about. I think it was interesting if we connect this, the book I was talking about, The Morning Star. Okay. He was saying that how come people in up to Middle Ages, they used to see angels, they used to see miracles, but all of a sudden had all stopped. So were they all psychotic? No. It cannot be that everybody was psychotic. How come people were talking about angels, but nobody does anymore? So he is, I guess, bringing this interesting point that we see what we believe in. So if we don't believe in something, we don't see it. Mm-hmm. So we could miss it. And it doesn't mean it exists or not. It's beyond that point. And you said it, I personally also have had really numerous experiences that things happened in my life that I had also other people next to me attesting to it that, by the way, did this really happen? And they said, yes, it happened. And there are no really evidence-based way of explaining it. The same way if we go, and you and I talked about this before this meeting, the whole point of the role of the observer in quantum physics is how come when there is an observer, electrons behave differently, and photons behave differently than when there is nobody observing. And even I read a study in Texas, the University of Texas, I think it was, they did this. They had this setup. The photons are being, shoot out, and they all over the place, right? The moment someone is there, they go through that narrow, open.
The double slit.
Right,
experiment,
exactly.
yeah.
And then what they did on top of that, they said, what if nobody's here, but they contacted some people from South America. And they said, you guys can imagine at 5 p.m., just think about our university, nothing else. They didn't give them anything. And think about our place. And they noticed, and nobody was there, exactly at 5 p.m., when people across the globe started thinking about that space, the photons started acting differently. Again, so it shows there is a proof that consciousness exists. We are all connected to each other. And even the mind over matter. The mind over matter, we always considered, the mind over matter, if I move a big table. No, but it happens at subatomic level, but that everything starts from there, coming up to the surface. So I don't doubt for a second that you've had moments that people showed up, things happen, and I'm sure you were not psychotic, you were not delusional, but then maybe we need to, what we're talking about, as clinicians, as people in the field, gradually help others to be more open to possibilities, to be open to their psyche.
Oh my gosh, you brought up so many points. I have so many things I want to say.
Please.
Okay, I love that you brought up quantum theory, because I believe that that is the bridge to the spiritual, mystical, and the empirical and scientific. Quantum physics, quantum mechanics is really helping, like Dr. Joe Dispenza says, to demystify the mystical.
Exactly.
Right? It's not as woo-woo or as fantastical as some of this empirical data has made it seem to be. That's one. The other thing is the role of beliefs, psychosis, different cultural perspectives on it, and the concept of the observer that attaches to that, right? I remember this really cool study that I learned about at UCLA in a cultural anthropology course, psychosis around the world, and how the way we perceive it shapes how it plays out in an individual, okay? And then I'll connect it to the concept of the Ho'oponopono prayer. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
Okay, that's in the spiritual community. Okay, so the research was that the onset of psychosis is the same globally around the world. And, I think between 18 to 22 for men, 20 to 24 for women. I can get into a lot more detail, but let's just put it that way. Okay, the onset's the same. Usually it's because the concept of nature versus nurture. So if they're predisposed to it and they have any kind of like harsh conditions, it tends to activate it, or it'll stay dormant if conditions don't activate it. The environment doesn't activate it. So in this case, like I said, that the age of onset is the same across the world, different cultures, different groups of people. The way it's approached, it's different. And I don't remember what groups of people it was, but like more indigenous, ceremonial-based cultures, let's say indigenous tribes, probably in Central South America, African cultures. When someone is psychotic, is perceived psychotic, they are seen as being gifted. They're not looked at negatively. They're actually looked at positively, and they have a very special function and role in society, which they tend to be the society's healer or visionary, or the one that like they go to for spiritual guidance. And because it's not medicated, it tends to resolve in the early 40s by itself. Now here in Western culture, when someone has a psychotic break, we medicate it. And we look at it negatively, and we look at it as someone who is a threat or threatening or sick or gravely disabled, right? We look at it as a disability, right? And we medicate it, and that creates this revolving pattern of just never resolving it. It just gets worse, and you medicate it further, and then there's a lot of guilt, shame spirals that come with it, and a lot of paranoia that comes with it, and a lot of aggression that comes with it, because the medication is messing with the brain chemistry of someone who's already operating differently with their brain chemistry to begin with. And then the social judgment that's added to it doesn't help the process. So someone in a Western culture is viewed as having a lifelong mental disorder when they're psychotic, versus, other cultures where, like I said, it resolves in itself. Around the early 40s, unmedicated and revered and having a positive role, a positive function in society. They're viewed as gifted, not mentally ill. And then there's this other aspect. I think it was in Hawaii. There was a psychiatrist working in an inpatient facility and did this thing called a Ho'oponopono prayer, and the prayer is, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. It's used a lot in the meditative communities. It's used a lot in breathwork communities and the spiritual communities. But the premise behind this was that the way we're viewing people who are hospitalized for psychiatric disorders, that we're viewing them as being sick. And so the I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, is I'm sorry, for maybe some of the judgments that I'm carrying, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. So it's shifting from that I see you as a mentally ill person to I see you as a normal, healthy, whole person. And because as the observer, now we're observing them differently, going into quantum theory, they start having radical remissions. They start healing and resolving because they're not viewed as sick. Okay? I'll add more layers to it. Then there's that psychological concept of folie douce, right? Where it's like, this is not the concept of enabling or avoiding a true disorder or true issue. It's about not seeing a person as being sick, which I think the language in the mental health industry has changed that way. Or here in the United States, it's very positive oriented, right? Like, for example, we don't call people mentally retarded anymore. We say intellectual disabilities, right? There's a softer approach in the words that we're using and the perception that we're having. And I think quantum theory, the concept of the collective unconscious, has something to do with that. We're evolving. Our psyche is evolving. We're taking that unconscious mindset to the conscious awareness or mindfulness to resolve it. We're bringing the shadows into the light.
Yes.
And a shadow can never consume a light. The light will always consume the shadow. And so seeing the unconscious patterns as shadows, bringing them into the light, that's how you heal it. That's what therapy does.
Yes.
That's what breathwork does. That's what meditation does. That's what quantum theory is trying to get us to understand.
So we play a big role as the observers and the impact that we have on people. So this is a very collective approach to it, which that's what we are all about, right?
Yes.
The importance of accepting this unifying, way of a connection, the consciousness, and how we can heal each other.
Yes.
So healing, again, this is very interesting. So healing happens also collectively. It's not really individualistic that I need to be doing this, but we all need to get together as our tribe used to do.
Yes.
And come to each other's help.
Yes, and going back to your whole vision here at Astana, having community, the concept of community is incredibly important. I get weary about tribalism because I don't like creating us versus them, but it's just community, just growing as a collective, right? And then that goes into the collective consciousness, and then that also talks about generational patterning, right? Every generation has their gifts that they bring and their challenges that they're working through, like boomers, Generation X, millennials, Gen Z, right? So that's part of the collective unconscious or the collective consciousness. That's part of our evolution. It's guaranteed for us to grow and evolve. It's just what we do. It's the growth pattern of humanity, and it's the evolutionary pattern of humanity, and it's the cyclical nature of humanity, right? You can go to a certain extent, and then you have to come back and kind of do it all over again, right? That's the seasonal nature of humanity. It's just kind of going back into just how we're designed, looking at all of it. I think I'm going on a lot of tangents here.
No, you're not. Actually, it's very important to hear about all of this. And I'm so glad to see more and more of us as clinicians are practicing these methods and trying to find new ways of addressing the old wounds that maybe sometimes we found ourselves, stuck, that by using all the tools we learned in our professional trainings, it doesn't get anywhere. Actually, interestingly enough, I'm also part of the Parapsychological Society.
Oh,
And
cool.
what I love about it is that they really bring all the evidence-based science and research into parapsychological phenomena. So, as you probably know, Jung, his doctoral actually dissertation was about parapsychological phenomena.
Cool.
And he was so much into it. So there are a lot of people trying, but it takes time before the insurance companies start accepting it, the general public start accepting it and trying to promote it. But we need to be having these conversations. We need to educate people. And I wanted to thank you so much for giving us this time and bringing all this knowledge and wisdom and experience to us and to our viewers and listeners. And I hope that you would give us more time next time as well, so we can have more time with you.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for setting this experience up. Thank you for opening the conversation of psychology and spirituality in the collective. Much appreciated. I think we only scratched the surface today. I think there's so many points that we can go into deeper dives. So I would love to come back and speak more and explore
Absolutely. So as long as you give us the promise us that you're going to come back again, because there's so much to talk about. And as I said, I'm thankful for you spending the time today with us. It was great. It was for me, I learned a lot. And hopefully we continue this next time.
All right. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. At Astane, we believe that psychology is not just the study of the mind, but a meeting place of psyche and soul. Today's conversation has shown us how ancient traditions, depth psychology, and holistic practices can illuminate this meeting place and guide us towards wholeness. To our listeners, I invite you to carry with you a question. How might your own healing also serve something larger than yourself? Whether it is through community, creativity, or inner reflection. We are each threads in the fabric of a collective story. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, may you continue to seek, to heal, and to remember the unity of psyche and soul.